What if the renovation you're planning right now could cut your monthly utility bills in half? What if the choices you make in the next few months saved you tens of thousands of dollars over the life of your home and made it more comfortable every day? That's not marketing. That's what smart, energy efficient building actually delivers. Today, I'm going to show you how. Welcome back to Real Talk Remodeling with Merlino Consulting. I'm Pedro Merlino, and this is a podcast where we give you real answers on building, remodeling, and design. Today, we're going to talk about sustainable energy efficient building. And just a quick note, I'm actually based in Southwest Florida, so you'll hear me reference Florida quite often throughout this whole episode. But everything we cover will apply no matter where you're building, even if you're in a northern state or wherever you're at in the United States of America, or even outside, it could apply to you as well. The principles are the same. The only thing that changes is the actual climate. For example, if you're in Florida or the southern states, you're going to probably be more concerned about keeping your house cool in the summertime. And if you're in the northern states, you're going to be more concerned about keeping your house warm in the wintertime. So let's get into it. 4 reasons why this matters right now. Energy cost. The average U.S. household electric bill is now at $163 a month as of 2026, up 26% over the last 5 years. Whether you're running AC 9 months a year in Florida or heating through a brutal Midwest winter, an inefficient home is costing you every single month. And that number keeps going up. Building codes. Most states are moving towards the 2021 IECC, that's the International Electric Conservation Code. Florida is already there. The 8th edition went into effect January of 2024 with tighter efficiency requirements than ever before. I don't mind that there is tighter efficiency when it comes to our house, meaning trying to have more eco-friendly stuff, trying to allow us to save energy because saving energy saves us money. I have an issue when it has to include automobiles. For example, start-stop features are horrendous. And the number one thing I do is hit that off button. When it comes to these energy standards, your contractor needs to know this. If they don't, that might be a problem. Now, keep this in mind. Not all contractors are going to know every single detail of the codes that are out there. So if they are not 100% sure and they need to look into it, that I wouldn't say is a red flag because it's hard to keep track of everything, especially when things change. So I would say talk to somebody who's responsible, somebody who's legitimate when it comes to being a contractor, and ask them the question. Sometimes it might be a project that they're normally not working on a regular basis. So when they take on that job, they're going to do their homework and make sure that all the codes are up to date. They're not going to build out your whole kitchen or your bathroom or whatever and not have all the updated codes in place. That'd be very non-intelligent of them to do that, especially if they're getting any type of inspections done. If they're not getting inspections done, then they could get away with anything. I think you would be making a mistake as a homeowner, not confirming that the permits have been pulled and that inspections are being completed. So just keep that in mind. Resale value. Buyers are asking about utility costs, HERS ratings, and insulation values. An energy efficient home sells for more. And that's true in every market, in every state. I don't know anybody who would look for a new house and not be interested in the energy efficiency that it can offer. I don't know anybody that has looked at a house that was energy efficient and said, I don't want that. Maybe I don't talk to enough people. But for the most part, most people want the energy efficiency. They want some of the technology that comes with it. Now, yes, some people are a little skeptical about the whole AI stuff or like say anything that has to do with technology that could hear your voice and hear what you say. So some people are a little sketchy about that type of stuff. But for the most part, people like convenience and they'll go that route. So energy efficiency, like I said, it's not something that somebody said, no, I don't want an energy efficient home, unless they like to just throw money out the window. And personally, as someone whose faith shapes how I do business, building a home that's a good steward of my family's money and resources just matters to me a little more than some people might think. And that's the foundation of how I think about this work. Anytime I approach any type of project, I want to make sure we're using resources properly and we're not wasting things. I hate waste, whether it's wasting food, materials, or anything in general. If I see there's waste, it just kind of bothers me. And it's It's kind of weird, but I kind of feel bad throwing things out. So I like to utilize what I could. So it could be a piece of wood that I cut. If it looks like I could use it, I'm going to want to keep it. I have to fight that temptation sometimes and just dump it because I know it's just going to sit in the garage or wherever. And right now I have quite a bit of wood that I've saved from projects I've done, and it sat in the garage for probably 6-7 years. And I finally got to work with some of it. Recently, I bought a laser engraver, and guess what? I get to use some of that wood. So other than that, I have pieces of wood that I probably won't use. But then again, I have this background that I currently am messing with here. Nothing special to look at. I have some random paintings from my kids and stuff. And I am planning on doing some type of upgrade back there. So I might utilize that wood that's in the garage, some type of accent pieces on that wall. So we'll see. Stay tuned and you might see the new background hopefully sooner than later. If you only remember only one thing from today, make it this. The building envelope is everything. It's the most important thing I would say out of this whole conversation we're going to have. And I'm going to explain to you why. Your walls, roof, windows, doors, everything inside and outside. Get this right and everything else gets easier. Getting it wrong, no HVAC system can save you. You need to be sure that this is done correctly, because if not, you could have the best HVAC system and the best insulation, but if the building envelope, like I mentioned before, the doors, the roof, the windows, all this stuff, if this is not properly sealed, you're going to be just throwing money out the windows, literally. Insulation. Most older homes everywhere in this country are under insulated by today's standards. In Florida, closed cell spray foam is a good option to go with, and it has great R value, acts as a vapor barrier, and handles our heat and humidity perfectly. There is one downside that could potentially be an issue, and is if your roof isn't properly sealed off from the elements, meaning the sheathing, you can have a problem with wood rot and all that. And the reason why I say that is since that foam spray acts as a vapor barrier, if you have a roof leak, for example, if you don't have the right flashing or there's some type of way that water could go through your shingles and that vapor barrier that they put on the outside, and it goes into your roof or your sheathing, it could cause issues with water, because if it's sealing it off from the inside of the attic, it's just going to absorb water, and then your sheathing could start rotting away because of the water. So that's the only downside. And a lot of times when you do find out you have some type of a leak or whatever, you're going to have to replace a huge section of that sheathing because it's going to be too late. The only time you might be able to see the damage is if for some reason the liquids are penetrating and it's actually accumulating and trickling down the actual truss from the inside of the attic. You might be able to notice, but for the most part, a lot of people overlook it. They don't see it until it's too late, and then they have quite a bit of damage from the exterior part of the roof, not the inner part, because once again, the exterior is the one that's actually holding the water, and unless you're climbing on the roof, you're not going to notice. Hopefully that made sense. Colder climates, different spec, same idea. The goal is the same. Stop the transfer. It almost sounds like some type of political speech. Stop the transfer. Anyways, yeah, stop that transfer. What I mean by transfer is the transfer of heat, whether we're transferring cool air outside, meaning whatever is inside is kind of escaping through gaps and holes, or the cool air from outside is coming in and you're trying to maintain the heat inside the house instead of losing it. Don't cheap out here. It pays back fast. And the attic, especially here in Florida, heat pours through that roof all afternoon. Inadequate attic insulation means your AC is working overtime in the afternoon. And if it's working overtime, a lot of times it's trying to catch up, and it never catches up because you're just constantly losing that controlled air because it's going out the window. If things are not sealed properly, that's money going out the window, through the roof, wherever it can find an escape. Windows. This is where I see people cut corners and regret it almost immediately. In Florida, impact glass is a non-negotiable unless you decide to go with some type of hurricane panels. Beyond that, watch your SHGC. That's your solar heat gain coefficient. You want it low here to block radiant heat. In colder climates, for example, if it's part of the house that's facing south, you want the windows to have a high SHGC. And the reason why you want a high SHGC is you want it to benefit from that winter sun that comes through. You want it to be able to absorb that heat to help keep the house warm. But that's the only difference, really. So it just depends on the climate or where you live. So it's going to be a little different everywhere. But obviously, if you talk to a professional in your area, you ask them those questions and they'll guide you the right way. Now, low E coatings help everywhere. So that's something you could use Florida, somewhere up north, wherever, that's fine. Air sealing is probably the most overlooked thing. This is something I mentioned a little earlier, and people don't realize this is one of the highest returns you could get when you do it correctly. Perfect insulation doesn't matter if your conditioned air is sneaking out through gaps and penetrations and bad transitions. So there's something called a blower door test, and what that does, it actually finds every single one of those leaks, and then you could just seal them up for cheap. It's not expensive to seal them up, or comparative. It's not expensive to seal them up. But the thing is, if you ignore them, it is expensive. So get that blower door test, seal up any type of leaks, and then you'll see a savings in the long run. Sealing them up is cheap. Ignoring them is expensive. Look into that. You probably never heard of it, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. Remember, envelope first, always. You don't want to start with expensive stuff. Start with the envelope first. Make sure all that's tightened up, buttoned up, whatever words you want to use. Make sure everything is nice and tight on energy efficient stuff or solar or a better HVAC system, whatever. You know that whatever money you're putting into it is going to stay inside the house and not going to escape through gaps. Quick break before we keep going. If you are getting value out of this, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and leave me a quick like. It costs you $0 to do that. It's just a quick, get your little mouse, or if you're watching on mobile, get your phone, and there's a little button that says subscribe. You just hit that button, and that's it. We're done. And then if your finger is right by the screen, you might as well just go over a little bit to the right for the most part. I think they're all to the right, and hit that thumbs up button. Not the thumbs down. Thumbs up only. That's all. Okay, subscribe and a quick like, and we'll be good to go. Costs you nothing. It helps me build the channel. It helps me be able to get in front of other people. And also YouTube will start recommending my content to more and more people, the more interactions I get. If you have any comments you want to make, feel free to go ahead and do that, and I'll respond accordingly. Like I said, if you do hit that like button and subscribe, it gets it in front of not only just people in general, but more homeowners and contractors who actually need this information. So if you're watching this and you're getting value, why not have somebody else find it and have them get value? Okay, let's get back to it. Systems matter, but only after the envelope is tight. HVAC. Target 15 SEER 2 or higher on your cooling system. Variable speed units adjust to real demand instead of blasting off at full power. And that's where the efficiency lives. It used to be that the AC would kick on and off, and there was zero efficiency. Now it's so intelligent that it knows what it's doing. It knows what to kick on, what kind of power it needs to produce. So it's pretty cool. I don't know I'm not geeked out on this whole HVAC thing. As a matter of fact, I will be interviewing tradespeople, and there's an AC company, which is actually a relative, my cousin. He owns a very popular company where I live, and he knows what he's doing with this stuff. And these are questions I could ask him. So let me know if you guys have any specific questions. Leave it in the comment, and I'll try to extract that comment and save it for that interview that I'll be doing. Mini splits are worth a serious look for additions and bonus spaces. No ductwork, great zone control, and excellent efficiency. And on new builds, get your duct designed properly. Leaky ducts quietly destroy efficiency, and most people never know what's happening. And I've seen this plenty of times. The HVAC system, when at least in the state of Florida and other places, it just depends on where you're at. They run it differently. But here we run it in the attic. I used to install ductwork for an AC company. I did rough-in work for new construction. And the flow of air needs to flow properly when you're running the duct. Another important thing are the connections. In my experience, the inspector, when they would inspect the ductwork, they would look from below. They wouldn't climb up on a ladder and walk through the whole attic and check all the connections and nothing like that. And I find that to be a slight issue. Maybe they changed that now, but when I was doing this type of work, they weren't checking it. And the issue that I find with that is the way it works is you have for the most part, a box in the attic. It could be called a plenum or a mixing box, or there's different ways some people will call it. And that box would have different lines that would go into it. For the most part, you have a main trunk line, which is a big tube. It's a flexible duct. And then you have other attachments to it, which are other ducts that would go out to each room. Well, that duct gets attached to that box with something called a collar. The collar would get attached to the box. Basically, you take the collar, you cut the hole the size of the collar, stick the collar in there, these little fingers that you bend in, and then you attach your duct. And ducts do have insulation. So it's a black piece, insulation, and then like a foil or aluminum looking outer layer. That duct gets attached to the collar with a large zip tie, and then you pull the insulation with the foil layer or whatever you want to call that over, and then you tape that on with like a metal tape. It's like aluminum tape. And normally you would use a squeegee, and you basically have that adhere really good onto the box, and it's pretty good stuff. And then after you use a tape, then you put mastic on there, and that seals everything up. Well, I've experienced situations where I go up in an attic and I notice that there's mold growing in the area where the mastic is. And the cause of that problem would be improper adhesion of the tape to seal off any type of air leakage. And a lot of times that happens because, number one, the tape wasn't properly adhered. But the most important thing is that the duct work, the flexible duct, wasn't properly butted up against the actual box with the insulation. So that means it left a little gap with just a black part. Well, if you don't have that insulation all the way up against the box and properly taped, it could cause condensation. But then the condensation plus the little gap that was left causes the air to leak out. Therefore, you have leaking air into your attic. And then it causes issues with moisture and mold growing onto the box. And mastic is not great at repelling mold, at least in my experience or when I used to do it. So it needs to be properly done. So I would recommend, if you're building a house or if you're getting new ductwork installed, hire a home inspector and have them climb through that whole attic and inspect every connection to make sure that it was properly done. Because obviously some inspectors, at least the inspectors I've dealt with, do not climb up into the attic checking every single connection. They're not going to do that, especially if it's a closed attic. So just be careful on that aspect of it, because the worst thing you want is to air condition your attic. And not only that, is have mold growth that you can't see. Solar. Costs are down about 50% from a decade ago. The hardware makes more sense than ever, but here's an important update you need to know. The federal residential tax credit expired at the end of 2025. That 30% credit is gone for homeowners who buy or finance their own system. Now, if you go through a lease or PPA, a third-party ownership agreement, there is still a commercial credit in play through 2027. Your solar installer can talk you through that option. Some states like California, New York, Massachusetts still have strong state-level programs. Always check what's available in your state with your local utility before you run any numbers. My standing advice is the same regardless. Fix the envelope before you go solar. Don't generate power just to waste it through a leaky house. It does not make sense. Smart tech. Smart thermostat, just do it. It's pretty cost effective. You're not paying an arm and a leg for it. Nest, Ecobee, independently verified to cut heating and cooling costs 10 to 15%. To me, that's a lot of money to save. So just for a little thermostat that looks cool, it's digital and, all that stuff, I would check it out, because to save 10 to 15%, that might sound like a little, but depends on how much your electric bill is. That's actually a pretty good savings. Not only is there real savings, like I said, that was an independent test that was done, but there's like zero effort to that. It's not like you got to spend crazy money on it. It's a pretty simple thing. Even if you want to buy it and install your own, it's not rocket science to do. Let's talk money. Air sealing, smart thermostats. Payback is measured in months, not years. That's something you should see within a few months of usage. Now, if we're talking about higher end windows or solar or anything like that, that's going to be kind of like a long game. It's more like a marathon instead of a sprint. You're going to take a little longer to recoup that investment. So with that one, you got to think about your total cost of ownership, not just the sticker price. If you think just a sticker price or upfront price, you're not going to want to do it. And if your math is not mathing, it's something that you're probably going to never pull a trigger on, not considering the long-term effects of saving. If you're planning on staying in your house for quite some time, I would definitely consider it only if you seem to have higher electric bills. Maybe you have a pool, maybe you have a home with a lot of square footage and you're consuming a lot of energy. Things like that you should consider and see what your long-term expenses are going to be. A window that cuts your cooling load for 20 years pays for itself multiple times over. So in a 20-year time frame, maybe less, it'll pay for itself. So you're not just putting this money in it and not going to reap the benefits. Now, if you are planning on selling your home in 5 years, maybe 10 years, it's probably not a good idea to put all this money into it. I personally wouldn't do it unless I know I'm staying here for quite some time. Now, can you recoup that money? Most likely if you didn't overpay for the systems you're installing. If you're overpaying for the stuff, then it's going to be hard for you to recoup all your money, but there is a benefit to it. On incentives, here's what you need to know. The federal landscape changed at the end of 2025. The federal solar credit is gone for direct purchases. The home improvement credits for windows, HVAC, and insulation are also expired. State and utility programs still exist in many areas, but don't assume, just verify. So find out what's available where you live before you build it into your budget. If you budget everything up front, assuming that you're getting a discount or assuming you're getting some type of credit, you might be a little disappointed when you start the whole process. Do that little bit of homework first. It's not going to take you forever. Just some quick Google searches or going on a state website, and you should be able to get that information. We do the homework with every client before a project starts, even if it has to do with solar. I'm not too hands-on with solar stuff, but I know the right contractors, and that's how I work that out. If you're a contractor or a consultant, if you're guiding a homeowner, it's okay to work with them and try to help them find this information. And you might be able to find information that they can't because you might have contacts that they don't have access to. The last thing, sustainable building isn't a finish line item. It's not something that you just bolt on at the end. It's something that needs to be planned throughout the process. I mentioned this with anything that has to do with remodeling or whatever you're doing to your home. You have to think everything through before you start it because some things are just not as easy as just bolting it on. You need to make sure you plan the proper infrastructure to be able to use these things. At Merlino Consulting, we partner with professionals who ask the right questions up front. Getting it right in the design is going to cost you a fraction of what it's going to cost in the field. And for contractors listening, be honest with homeowners. I'm not an expert in everything. That's why I build a team that is. So if you don't know something, team up with somebody who knows it. It's okay not to be sure. You don't want to wing it with a homeowner because some homeowners do so much homework that they know more than you would. So I would suggest if you're not sure, say, hey, I'm not sure about that, but let me make a couple calls and I'll get you the answer. It's okay to say that. It's not degrading yourself or anything like that if you say, I don't know, because once again, you don't want to mislead the homeowner. And sometimes they catch you on that lie and then you're going to feel like a dummy. So just avoid that whole potential awkwardness and say, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, whatever. I'm not too sure about that. I have to look into it because I don't want to tell you the wrong information. That's it. And get the information from the expert and regurgitate what you were told. Or you could just set up a meeting with the expert and be there with the homeowner and have that conversation. Obviously, if you're a contractor and the homeowner wants to do something with that expert in the field, have the expert tell you the price, you sub that expert out, and then you give the homeowner your price. So whatever way you want to do it. But when it comes to solar, for example, if you're a contractor, I probably would have the homeowner deal directly with the solar person. So you're not responsible for any issues with the panels or any warranty problems or anything like that. So I would probably just have the homeowners work directly and just work something out with the actual solar company to make sure you get paid a specific percentage on that job. So that's all back end stuff you need to work with. And if you're a homeowner listening, obviously we're here to make money. So if you're a contractor or consultant and you make money on the project, that's what we're here for. You should be able to get compensated for the work you're doing. My whole business model is working with people that are in the industry, that are vetted, that are trustworthy to do business with. That's a whole business model. That's how I work. I deal with experts in in their individual industry. And in some cases, I know just as much as they do in their industry. So it just depends on what expert I'm talking about. All right, that's a wrap. Building envelope, smart systems, honest expectations on incentives, the right team. Sustainable building is good for your wallet, good for your comfort, and good for the long-term value of your home. Wherever you're building, these principles work. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you could be in the South, you could be up north, Midwest, anywhere is going to be the same concept throughout. Thanks for listening to Real Talk Remodeling with Merlino Consulting. If this was helpful, leave a review, share with someone who's possibly building a home or renovating, even if they're already started or they're midway through. Share it with them because they might pick something up that might be helpful. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you hit the bell notification, then obviously you'll be notified. If you got a project that you want to walk through, reach out through the Merlino Consulting website, on social media, or you could just email me at peter@merlinoconsultants.com. That's PETER at MERLINOCONSULTANTS.com. That would be my email. Send it there and I'll take a look at it and see if I could help you on your specific project. If you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. Or if you are watching on the TV or anything like that, you can scan this QR code and that would take you directly to the Buy Me a Coffee page. Until next time, I'm Pedro Merlino. Plan smart, build well, and let's raise the standard together. See you next time.